Hi everyone, and good evening, and welcome to tonight's presentation, which is going to be all about the special weight of student research and a mentor experience in holistic admissions, presented by Barb Leventhal. I'm Kathy Hart. I'm one of the educational consultants. I am going to be in the background this evening, making sure everything is running smoothly. Before we get started, just a few small housekeeping items. First of all, we do have some downloads available at our website, scorewebinar.com. And you don't need these handouts to refer to them throughout the presentation, but they are some great additional resources for tonight's presentation, and they're going to be available on this website for several weeks. So if you don't grab a copy tonight, you can get them later. Also, too, in case there are any audio, video technical difficulties, we are making a recording of this presentation. If you registered the event, you'll receive the link in an email. And as always, all of our webinars are always posted on our website within a day or two of the presentation. So without further ado, I am going to bring on my friend and colleague, Barb, and just a little introduction. So Barb Leventhal brings to our educational consulting practice more than 30 years of experience as a teacher, administrator, and college counselor. All parents take great pride in the special qualities of their children. My role is to define those qualities and channel them in unique ways that tell a compelling story for college admission, she notes. As an educational consultant, reading specialist, teacher, administrator, parent, and grandparent, Barb knows what it's like to experience the stress and frustration at every step in the education process. Her empathy for her students makes things easier for both them and their parents. All right, so Barb, if you can turn your camera on, I'm going to turn mine on.
Good evening, everyone, or good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are. Hello, I'm Barb Leventhal, an educational consultant with JRA Educational Consulting, and I'm part of the Score at the Top family. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the weight of student research and mentorship in holistic admission. Next slide. So I have a riddle for you this evening. What do Holistic Review and the Wizard of Oz have in common? I think that there's still a lot about the mystery, about the admissions process that remains a mystery. So tonight we're going to pull back the curtain on Holistic Review so that you can learn a bit more about how the admissions decisions are made and what you can do to influence that decision in your favor. Next slide. What you can learn this evening: what is a holistic review? What factors influence holistic admission? What factors are beyond our control? How can you optimize your impact? How can students benefit from research and mentorship? You'll be able to learn from our guest, Stephen Turban, who is director and co-founder of Lumiere. And you'll learn from our panel of students about their projects and their experiences with mentorship. Next slide. So what is a holistic review? A holistic review means that the admissions office does a whole person review. They consider more than just your grades and your test scores. They're actually considering your essays, your teacher recommendations, your extracurricular accomplishments, and other kinds of life experiences. They're evaluating each applicant as a whole, living, breathing person. One of the biggest mistakes that students make is working the application as a checklist, working section by section, rather than viewing the application in its entirety as a narrative. The biggest reason that qualified students are rejected from their dream colleges is not that they're not capable, it's that they fail to tell a compelling and unique story for admission. Next slide. Oh, here's a list of the factors that influence holistic admissions. And when you look at the list, I'm not going to read the list out loud, you can read it for yourselves. But the ones that are highlighted in yellow: are the ones where I feel that students have the opportunity to really influence have an influence in the holistic process. And here's a secret. By looking at those factors that are considered in the holistic review, the colleges are really telling you how to fill out the application. So don't work on any one component of your application in a vacuum, because you won't be evaluated that way. Each section is reviewed in the context of the whole application. Make sure that each component adds something new to your story. During the holistic review, the story will be summarized by one of the admissions officers in one little soundbite, a sentence that says, here's a student who, and whatever it is, and then the committee votes to accept, to waitlist, or deny. When going through the application, make sure that you view each essay, short answer, and activity as a chapter in your personal story. Next slide. So one of the things that we don't have control over as consultants, as parents, or as students is the college's priority list. They don't share that with the public. It's used by the committee behind closed doors to balance the class and fill the needs of the college. Maybe they need a tight end or a tuba player or students from a particular state. And that's part of the process that we're not privy to. Next slide. Make sure that your application positions you as more than a number. Your application should give the readers information about your demographic, your academic interests, your extracurricular passions, your future plans, and your character. Grades and test scores don't differentiate one student from another. Activities do. Colleges are not looking for long lists of activities. They're reading your activity list as evidence of your interests and your passions. Next slide. Optimize your interests and relationships. So one way to build strong credentials is to link your academic interest to your extracurricular achievements. One way to do this is through relationships with coaches, teachers, advisors, professors, and other adults in your life. What story do your activities tell? What do they say about your character? What have you accomplished? Who are your mentors? And how has your mentor helped you to grow? For those of you who missed the last session, The Value of Independent Research in College Admissions with Dr. George Philippe Laborde, here's a quick review of 2 important points. If you'd like to see the full webinar, it's available on YouTube, and I think it's on our website now. So, the value of research for students. Research is a highly respected activity in the admissions process because it teaches students the soft skills that are critical for success in college and later in graduate school or in the workplace: organization, time management, communication, resilience. Next slide. How to find a mentor. When you're making a request of a professor or grad student, keep in mind that you're looking to find someone with an interest in teaching or mentoring, that you should identify a researcher with the right expertise, demonstrate your interest in whatever they're researching, make sure that you articulate what kind of help you want, and be respectful of their time. These are busy people. And if you want to make a good impression, here's a list of things that Dr. Laborde suggested in finding the mentor. So next slide. How do students benefit from mentorship? I always tell students that their activities need to pass the so what test. Colleges want to know the impact of your activities. You completed a research project. So what? What did you do with that project? What did it lead to? The answer to the so what question can also often come from high school students who are building strong relationships with their mentors. So Mentors can provide real-world experiences through their connections. They empower personal growth for our students. They encourage students to identify majors and career goals. They give you an insider's perspective on the field that they're an expert in, and they really help students to expand their skills and knowledge. My guest this evening is Stephen Turban, director and co-founder of Lumiere. Hi, Stephen.
Hi. Hey, can everyone hear and see me? Or at least, probably, can you hear and see me?
I can hear you, but I don't see you yet.
You do not see me.
I know from the conversations that we've had that you feel strongly that your research and mentorship experiences helped you in the holistic process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that mentorship has been a huge part of my life. It's definitely the reason why I care so much about research, and which I think goes hand in hand with mentorship, and a big reason why I care about Lumiere. So yeah, absolutely, and happy to dive into that.
Okay, let's get started.
Excellent. Great. Well, hey, thank you, everyone. I'm really excited for us to be talking a little bit about mentorship and research. I'm going to quickly share my screen. And so if you all will just be patient with me as I do that. I am going to assume at this point that you can't see my screen. And I assume someone will jump in and tell me if you cannot. Yeah, thank you so much, Barbara, for that great introduction. I'm Stephen. I'm a PhD student at Harvard Business School. I'm also one of the co-founders and directors of the Lumiere Research Scholar Program. And today I really want to talk about mentorship and college admission, and particularly the link between mentorship and research, which I think is a really important one that people often don't think about. I think when people think about research, they often think about, okay, I'm someone in a lab coat, I am creating something, am I going to get published? You know, have I made a patent? And they think, okay, what's the end product? What am I going to make at the end? But in fact, the process of doing research, I think, is builds one of the most important things, and not the most important thing, which is this mentoring relationship with someone. And to me, this connection to mentorship is one that's not only impacted me, but it's impacted my family for generations. So just to say a little bit about why I'm currently doing a PhD, it's because of a couple of really important mentors in my life. I'll talk about my dad first, and then this man, David Garvin, I'll speak about last. But my dad is a professor. He actually researches mentorship. So certainly he's someone who cares a lot about it. But he became a professor in kind of a quite roundabout way. He grew up very poor in Hawaii. His father was a Holocaust survivor. So his father fled from Germany in the late 1930s. And his father was someone who, this is his father, my great-grandfather pictured here, always wanted to be like his dad, who was this prominent researcher in Germany. But because of the Holocaust, never got the opportunity to study college. And so eventually fled to the United States, luckily survived, and eventually moved to Hawaii. But as a result, my dad grew up really without many resources at all. We're going to talk with a few students in a bit who have done Lumiere, who have done research, and my dad was nothing like those students. These students are incredible, talented, driven. My dad was a really bad student, self-described. He, just to kind of case in point, was so uninterested in academics that his high school, he took 4 PE classes to round out the final year. So certainly would never have thought about doing a research program in high school. But when he entered college, his dad, who had kind of suffered from mental health issues throughout his life, passed away quite suddenly. And so my dad, who really did not have the same set of role models that I would have, of course, with him and later on David, started doing research in remembrance of his father, who had just passed away. Started working at a psych lab. Really fell in love with it. Fell in love with the questions of asking why people do what they do. Had a mentor at the University of Hawaii where he was, who guided him, and eventually kind of changed his course from being the student who's taking 4 PE classes to someone who was dedicated to the practice of doing research. Eventually went on to do a PhD, became professor. And for myself, I had a very different background growing up than my dad. Of course, I had this bougie psych professor as a father. But again, that theme of mentorship and research going hand in hand really held true for me. I was an undergrad at Harvard, and I did this research program at Harvard Business School, which really just changed my life. I had a number of mentors there who were really important, but one in particular was this man, David Garvin, who, speaking of great mentors, you can always look at Harvard Business Review, the art of giving and receiving advice, which is one of his great articles, kind of reflection to the type of person he is. Dave was in his early 60s when we met. We met because actually I reached out to him because I was interested in his research in that particular article, and he just became kind of like a father figure to me. He really invested in helping show me what research was, what a scholar looked like, and invested a lot of time. We did a lot of one-on-one work together over the course of those next 2 years. He unfortunately ended up passing away during my final week of senior year, but remains a big influence in my life, and I think a big part of the ethos of Lumiere, of research, and really someone who showed me how research and mentorship can and should go hand in hand. He's a big reason why I went back to HBS to start a PhD, and a big reason why I care so much about that. So, I tell this story in part because it's so important and personal to me, but in part because research and mentorship, again, we often think about research as that end product, and in fact, it's that process focus that leads this incredible outcome, which is these mentoring relationships, and that is no coincidence. That's no coincidence. Research is one of those last great traditions of this apprentice master type relationship, or expert apprentice relationship. It's captured perfectly in this number that for those math experts out there will know, or if you're interested, the Erdos number, in which prominent mathematicians, or really any mathematician, will ask the question of how many steps does it take for me to get to Paul Erdos? And that's because Erdos was a great collaborator and a great mentor to many of the great mathematicians. I'm a big language lover, so recently I've been learning Hindi, and in India there's this concept of Guru Shishya Parampara, which means the descent of a line of learning from a master. Often it refers to classical music, but it can apply to kind of any field in which you follow in the lineage of the person, the master that taught you in a particular discipline. And research is one of those things that is still like that. People, I think back about when I spoke with David, he would speak about his mentor at HBS that was so important to him. In fact, it's special for David. His professorship was actually named after that mentor, a great instructor. And so the force of research is one of those few remaining traditions where people build their expertise not by learning something general, but by actually following in the footsteps of a mentor. And research has been like this for centuries and continues to be like this, where in many this focus on artisan-like craft building of mentorship has not gone away, but is less prominent. Research and academic research, really, it remains at the heart. And so when you pick a PhD program, it's one of those few things where people say, pick the person you're going to work with, the people you're going to work with, not necessarily the school, because that still holds true. And that holds particularly true as well for younger students. because when younger students are doing research, oftentimes the mentor that's guiding them is doing it not because they want some amazing output from a student, but because they're excited to have the opportunity to pass forward their legacy through that person and by mentoring that next person. So what is research? Now, how do we understand what research is? There's lots of definitions. I give kind of a textbook one at the top. Definition that I always come back to is this idea of learning under uncertainty. So research is learning when things are uncertain. And this definition kind of goes back to two things that I think are important. The first is that research is actually quite similar to entrepreneurship, in that in entrepreneurship, the goal is, how can I create something that people care about? I know this is connected to my own research. How can I create something that I care about, that hasn't been thought of before, hasn't been created, hasn't been localized in the same way? And I'm doing it in a context of which I don't know the answer. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if there's excitement towards that. I don't have a clear cut and try template to do it. I'm trying to create, trying to build under uncertainty. Research is similar, but you're trying to learn something new under uncertainty. You're trying to figure out, is this true? Is my hypothesis about the world correct? Is this question, which may never have been asked before, can I figure out the answer? And in an uncertain environment, what we seek out are people who have gone before us. No one knows the answer. No one is going to be able to tell you, yes, this is true, that this isn't true. But instead, we cling to people and seek guidance from people who have been a little bit farther than we have, which is, again, why research is something that follows this tradition of mentorship, because you don't really know what happened. You don't really know what happened. And you're looking for someone who's at the very forefront of a field, and only a select handful of people can really do that, which is a big reason why mentorship is such a big part of research. Now, there are plenty of ways to do research in high school. I won't spend too much time on this, but I do think it kind of bears speaking to what requires a mentor and what does it. I would say there's three main ways that students in high school can engage in research. The first is a structured research program. There are great research programs out there. MIT's RSI is probably the most prominent of all of these programs in terms of its selectivity, but there's tons of others. The idea behind a structured research program is that we want to create the bounds for you to be successful. We're going to provide a research mentor for you, create a timeline, and essentially make sure that you are also brought in a community of other researchers. There's also research assistant work, in which students reach out to a faculty member, PhD student, to assist in their work. In a structured research program, often the research is being driven by the student, and that's both done for a pedagogical reasons and also because of a desire to help out kind of young researchers get started. In a research assistant work, usually the research is being driven by the mentor themselves, and the student kind of fits in to that work, usually by doing things which are a little bit less glamorous. Certainly, this has been my experience, but also a great learning opportunity where you may be doing some pipetting in Excel, a bunch of potential different things that you might be doing. Both of these require a mentor. So again, these are probably the two, I would say, more highly recommended ways to get involved in research in high school. Another option is for students to do individual independent research. The IB Extended Essay is a good example of this. AP Research is another good, AP Capstone, it's another good example of this. Certainly possible and a great learning opportunity. It's difficult to reach much depth in this research without being guided by someone who is an expert in the field, which is why I make that recommendation for kind of 1 and 2. I'm going to speak quickly about how working with a mentor on research can impact admissions, and then I'm going to talk to some students, because that's much more interesting than listening to me talk. I'm already slightly bored of myself at this point, but quickly, when you're working with a mentor, you are showing and this is true of research in general, but also true of working with any academic mentor, is you're showing a level of academic excellence, which is is not reflected in just taking great standardized test scores. The great thing about research is that we think about universities, at the very pinnacle of any institution, any university, is researchers, are tenured professors, and they're tenured professors not because they are super charismatic, not because they are necessarily even the best teachers, which we can talk about the structure behind that, but because they're great researchers, not because they got great test scores, because they're great researchers. And so when universities look at research, they see it as kind of the pinnacle, as something that's really difficult. It showcases academic ability for students. When you're doing research, you're also developing this mentoring relationship, as we talked about, and this means that mentors can be advocates for you. And one of the things about that is, no researcher got where they are today without a set of recommendations from prior researchers. In fact, one of the things that I've written, and this is not for high school students, but for people who are looking to do PhDs, is a guidebook on applying to these business school PhD programs, or these really competitive programs. And the biggest recommendation that we give is that you have to develop a relationship with researchers. And the same is true for high school students who are looking to apply to college. When you're looking to go to college, you need people to be like, hey, this student is awesome, and I really advocate for them. And when you're doing research, you're developing that type of relationship. And then finally, being successful in a university is about being able to work in uncertainty and being able to navigate things which are unclear. Research is one of the great ways to do that. And building a relationship with a mentor is, I think, at the core of that process. And if you can show that they've done that through research and build something that's kind of impressive at the end, that can be really powerful for the college admission process. So I'm not going to say much more about this. I'd love to spend some time talking to some students. These are students who I'm really excited about because they represent kind of a broad range of disciplines, years. We have students who are entering into their freshman year right now. We have students who are entering into the early parts of high school. All very talented, all who have done the Lumiere Research Scholar Program. We won't focus on Lumiere, we'll focus on their research and talk a little bit about their, about what they've done and a little bit about themselves. So I'm gonna stop sharing and hopefully we can invite them on to the stage. Yeah. Hello. Hi everyone. Hi Kathy, thank you for the wave. So I would love for you guys to kick us off by maybe going one by one, introducing yourself. And when you're introducing yourself, I'll kind of call it, you just say your year, where you are, and there's a few quick questions. Could you say a little bit about what your research topic was, and potentially, what kind of led you to that research topic? So year, where you are, for some of you guys will be kind of in university, some in high school, totally expected. What led to the research, and then who's your research mentor as well, and talk a little bit about that person. So maybe Kathleen, you can kick us off, and then I'll have some more questions from there.
Hi everyone, my name is Kathleen and I am in my freshman year of college. I'm currently in Cambridge on campus and I did research on computer science education. And I think what led me to that was a lot of negative experiences in computer science as a female. And now that a lot more research is coming out about computer science education, I thought it was really exciting to analyze and synthesize a lot of it and make sense of it. It was really meaningful to me because I actually felt like my research could have had an impact, or it has some kind of practical application that could impact people's lives. So that was really exciting. Yeah.
Kelly, could you say a little bit about who your mentor was? And
oh yeah,
I know your mentor loves you. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I had a really great mentor, Jorge. He studied at Oxford University, and he really pushed me every week. If I didn't like complete my research, he would be like, "What's going on?" Like encouraging me and really motivating my research and giving me really honest feedback that like allowed me to really be proud of the work at the end of it, because he made it so that he had really high expectations of me. And I think the program really does have high expectations because they know what you're capable of. And that just encouraged me to, yeah, produce something that I was really proud of. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Kathleen, we'll come back to you. Kathleen, would you be able to introduce yourself a little bit, where you are, year of high school, and catalyst for your research project?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Prathamari Carey. I'm a rising junior in high school at Cumberland Valley High School in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. And my mentor was Khaled Jadoui from Stanford University. And my research project was largely based in computer science and specifically machine learning. I studied if you're able to train a model to multilingually translate sign languages.
Great. And could you say a little bit further about how you got to that topic and kind of what inspired it?
So on our first meeting, Calden and I were just sitting down talking about things that could be solved by machine learning, but like weren't like we're still in an obscure field, and we came across that believe it or not, there are so many different types of sign languages. Yet the only one that comes in mind for me would be American Sign Language. And when looking through like GitHub and Kaggle, there are various models that train sign languages, but usually it's only one language. So we decided, why not train all of them at once. So we decided to focus on American Sign Language, Indian Sign Language, and Italian Sign Language.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Father, we'll come back to you on this project. Isabella, would you be able to introduce yourself and say a little bit about where you are and your research project?
Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you. I'm Isabella, but you can just call me Bella, and I'm a 14-year-old. I'm a rising sophomore at Edgemont Junior Senior High School in Scarsdale, New York. And so right now I'm currently working on my research project at Lumiere, and it's very focused on both like computer science and public health, since I'm interested in both. So it's kind of the intersection of those two fields. And as a student, I was really advocating for trying to get legislation passed for the vaping epidemic, since I saw that affecting my peers. So I kind of followed that through my research, and I'm creating a model to show how the three main factors like ads, peer pressure, and just like social norms and things like that affect the vaping epidemic and how many users there are. So that's what I'm working on now with my mentor, Joshua Derrick, and he studied at MIT, and he's right now working at Johns Hopkins University. So it's just been a really great experience, and I can't wait to share it with you guys.
Yeah, Isabel, I'd love to kind of start with you. I think you represent you're the youngest representative, and clearly doing something that I know from the first time we spoke, something that you really care about in terms of kind of the vaping epidemic. Can you talk a little bit about how you came to that as a topic? And it seems like it's something that you've been thinking about for a while, and that research was kind of an output of that interest. Could you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I've been working really hard to try and improve the public health of our citizens as director of advocacy and now deputy executive at Students Against Nicotine. And that's just a student-led organization I became a part of. And we kind of do a lot with education and networking and community outreach. And although that's a really important aspect of it, I think there still needs to be a lot more research done on this topic because it is so widespread and very new. Vaping is just become a popular thing in the last few years. So I garnered a lot of knowledge about like the health risks of vaping and smoking through these engagements. And this made me more aware of public health issues they're faced with. So because I was already so passionate about it, I wanted to do something with research that I enjoyed. So this is really clear that I would want to do research in this.
Yeah. And for you, research is one of the things I'm curious about. Is research is something that is often a little different than other ways of approaching kind of, for example, in this case, a public policy question. And I think I'd love to talk to Kathleen about this as well. How has research been what you expected in terms of approaching this question, and how has it been different than what you expected? I know you're kind of in the midst of it right now, so you don't have to have a perfect answer, but yeah, does that make sense?
Is that for me or Kathleen?
That's for you. That's for you. Then I'll pass to.
Yeah. So growing up, my mom was a PhD, so I always her going to lab, and you always think how it is like with a white coat, but it's in real life, it's really different. And I never expected that I would be here, especially at like a young age. But it's actually been really cool because one, it's like a little different because it's remote, but it's still a great experience. So like working and looking a lot at PubMed and looking at the previous works, and then you kind of use that to build off your own research. And with computer science, you have to do a lot of coding and things like that. So it's kind of very similar to like learning a language like Python. And research is at times very difficult, but you just got to keep working, because at the end of the thing, you want to fight for find something that's worth sharing so other people can build off of what you found. And yeah, so it's very different, but still very worthwhile, I would say.
Kathleen, I'm curious for you. How has research been kind of what you expected coming in, and then how is it different than what you expected?
For me, I never really thought I would be able to do research. I read this in a lot of like the commentary that I give back to the program. Like I never thought I could do research. Just it seems so out of my comfort level, I guess, because none of my family like really pursued higher education at all. And I just didn't think I was going to be able to do it, honestly. But then Lumiere showed me that I really was able to, and like helped me with time management. I think that was the biggest thing that I got out, empowerment and time management, because my mentor really helped like structure like my goals and how I needed to put the time into that, and how I was going to learn this completely new skill. And yeah, I was really excited about research even after I finished it. I was like, this could be something that I want to like pursue for the rest of my life potentially. Like that's how excited I was about it.
Wow, that's yeah, and I think for that, I'll come back to you in a second about research and mentorship. Probably the same question to you. Like when you came in, I know that you came in, brother, having a pretty clear idea around wanting to do things in computer science, and particularly focus. So in a way, you have had this experience that you wanted to apply. But from your experience, how similar was it to what you expected, and what was surprising about doing research?
So I knew I wanted to do a research project in computer science, but like before my first meeting, I was like, oh no, like what topic am I gonna do? How am I gonna choose a topic? Has to be like novel and everything. But then like with my first meeting with my mentor, like it was very easy. I mean, Lumiere sets it up like very easy, gives you the templates. So I never like, as the others said, like I never thought I was cut out to be like a researcher or anything. But I mean, after going through this entire process, which just ended recently, it's like, wow.
Yeah, and in terms of what research kind of entail, because I want to focus a bit more on kind of the research kind of component, was when you were doing like the project itself, did it feel like, was it challenging in the ways that you expected, or was anything that was challenging that you didn't expect?
I thought, because I focus on computer science, so I thought I'd be like typing out code and all that. But in reality, I was just looking for data sets and putting them together to make a large data set. And the code was quite simple as well. So it was quite different from what I expected. I thought I'd be like sitting all day in front of a computer trying to write hundreds of lines of code out. But it was mainly the data set part of my research project that took the most time.
Yeah. I think that is so true. Research projects where you're just like going through infinite data. You're just trying to find something. No, I think that's
like
absolutely
mine,
right.
especially like I needed like tens of thousands of pictures of hands. That's what I defined.
It's a very specific and all of your time looking for. I'm just now. I want to switch gears a little bit and. I want to talk with you a little bit because you're someone who I really admire, and you're currently a freshman at MIT. And I think one of the things I admire about you is that you have a lot of people who really advocate and care about you. And I'm curious from your perspective, and your mentor, Jorge, who I've spoken with a number of times, clearly has a really deep caring for you. And what do you think that is important? To the extent that you can think about this in developing a mentoring relationship, because I think it's something you do incredibly well, and I'm just curious from your perspective if you've thought about it.
That's really nice to hear. I don't know. I think everyone just really wants to be respected and heard in life, and I think that goes a long way. Just like listening to others and really putting into perspective and like trying to understand things from their point of view, because it can be frustrating when you worked really hard on something and it comes back with like a lot of edits and like a lot of things that you need to improve. But he really just wanted me to have like the best result possible. And he always told me that, like we could do this easy way, or we could like set this up like more interesting and more challenging. And he would always encourage me to like really push myself. And I don't know, I really, really respected him as a mentor. I think it was also because we shared the same like cultural background almost, that we were able to connect on a deeper level because of that. And I think Lumiere does a really good job of like pairing, I guess, personality types. I don't know if you guys do that on purpose, but I felt like I really connected with my mentor from like the first meeting, and that he was really, really supportive, and he really just wanted to like help. And he was just passionate about being a mentor. There was no like there's no like, I'm just doing this for like a resume, or I'm just doing this like for a job. Like the whole time he was just really passionate about being a mentor. Even after, he always reached out to me and he's like, how are you doing? Like, how's college applications going? Yeah.
And I really want to so I can say like, I think that's something that's true across researchers, that if a researcher is working with a student, like they're doing it because, it's not because they're getting some sweet check mark, that they're doing it. It's usually because they're really excited and they see a piece of themselves in a student, and because they want to, I talk about that like idea of that like apprentice master, or maybe probably a better way to say it, like this guru shishya parampara relationship, and they kind of want to see a piece of themselves go forward in that person. I think that's true across research, many researchers. That's great. Yeah. And have you, now as you think about, entering MIT and starting your freshman year, is that something that you're thinking about in terms of, reaching out to researchers or getting involved? I know that you kind of mentioned that a little bit. No pressure, because you haven't even like started. So
I had a meeting with someone already about a potential undergraduate research opportunity.
Oh no way. Wow.
So, I'm already like putting my building a small network, I guess, of people like that I feel connected to, almost here in the MIT, the small part of the MIT community that I've met. And I feel like knowing that people like you and Jorge are like behind me, and that I've done it before, I feel like more empowered to be able to redo it again, almost like, it's like once you summit a mountain, it's like you never thought you'd be able to summit it, but once you do, it's like everything else seems easier, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've never summited a mountain, but I assume that's true. I assume that,
Kathleen, can I ask you a question? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, beyond the research itself, what did you gain from the mentorship relationship that helped you with either getting into college or getting a view towards your career?
I think Jorge was always really honest about his life as a researcher. He told me the pros and the cons, and even though I saw him stressed out with his own deadlines, he always seemed like he was happy and like fulfilled with what he was doing. And that came across not only in like his teachings, but also in, like the other conversations that we had about like him and his life as a researcher. And I think it motivated me to like really apply myself to like portray myself as someone who is capable of doing research. Well, also because I was, but also he helped me like he helped me realize that I need to be like specialized almost. You know, you have to like gain all these specific experiences and prove that you're really competent and motivated in your line of research. And yeah, he helped me a lot with that because he also did computer science research. So he was a big help in like my college applications and moral support and telling me that no matter what, like it's gonna be okay. Yeah.
I think I'd love to, Barbara, if you're open to ask that question as well about to Isabella and Pratham. Maybe Isabella, to you, beyond the research itself, what did you gain from the mentorship? How do you think that will help you with college and career? Obviously, you're kind of looking at this from a few years out.
Yeah, definitely. I think like right now, especially because of my age, I'm so young, it's really hard to gain that mentorship like on your own. And a lot of it is cold emailing, and most of the time you don't get a response. And especially with COVID, it's so hard because they don't want high school students in the lab. So being able to easily gain this mentorship through Lumiere has been amazing. And I really feel connected to Josh, and he's always there. Every meeting we have, he's always prepared to help me with my research and make sure that I totally understand what I'm doing. So I'm prepared to do it by myself. And through Lumiere, I've also like, you get those workshops and different like templates, like Pratham was saying, that really helps you like learn how to do things on your own. And so when I leave the program and go on to do other research, I feel fully prepared and to do stuff on my own. And I already know the basics of how to write a research paper, you know, like things like that. So even though I'm still in it, I feel like I've gained so much, and I'm just excited to see where it goes.
Have any of you published your work yet? No? Okay.
Well, Lumiere has a publishing program that after you do the first part, you can do the second part. So I think I'm going to complete that after the summer, and that's like it helps you push your paper into getting published.
Yeah, even though I haven't really finished my research yet, I'm almost there. But once I finish, which should be at the end of August, I'm planning to send it to different publications, and I already have 2 to 3 target publications that I wanted to go to that are really prestigious. So, and Lumiere helps you prepare with that, and they give you a whole list of not only like publications, but conferences and different things like that that you can go on to use your research in for the future.
Sounds good. Stephen, do you have any more?
Yeah, maybe just to final pass that to Pratham in terms of, when you think about working with someone who is a full-time CS researcher, what did you gain from that mentorship, and how do you think it's going to help you in your college and career?
So Khaled, like as you said, is like full-time researcher at Stanford University, and also he not only taught me like various life skills like meeting deadlines or like what to do when certain thing arises. So he's also like, whenever I had a question about like the research process, like what should I do, or like what should I include in my research paper and whatnot, or where should I apply, he always had these answers for me that he could explain to me as well. And a lot of things I gained from like research is I can present the same research project in various different places, like let it be science fairs or technology fair, whatnot. So, and also I also gained like a large community of other researchers who are on the same page as me through Lumiere's Discord and all that. So also ideas, because a couple of students like they frequently present. So a good community and a lot of life skills is what I learned.
Excellent. Well, Robert, those are the main questions that I wanted to ask. Robert, is there anything that you would like to chime in with?
I don't know if, Kathy, have we gotten any questions from people who are viewing?
No questions from the chat yet.
Okay. So then let me say a few things that maybe before we close this evening. So every application should be built around a central passion. And you can hear in the students that the various passions, some of them are things that you wouldn't have as a subject in high school. So I'm thinking about Bella and her project on public health, about vaping. There wouldn't be a curriculum in high school on public health, or even, there probably wouldn't even be a subject to investigate about vaping. And so the central passion is something that you want to build your application around. And if you don't have an interest like public health or computer science, it might be just your best subject in school. And that passion is like the GPS that helps students navigate in the right direction. So that passion should help students to pick their courses, look at summer programs, find research projects like you all did. I mean, just kind of navigate in the right direction, and obviously, and find mentors. And then you want to have your activities align with the passion. So I'm sure that if I were to look at your resumes, I would see lots of computer science activities on yours, Pratham, and lots of things in the public health area. So that's really what you're looking for, is to see that once you have your passion and you take the academic part and plan that out by looking for the courses and the summer programs and the research projects and the mentors, that the next thing is to really align activities with that passion. So if you're in 8th or 9th or 10th or 11th grade, this is an ideal time to get started, because planning takes time and building credentials takes time. But if you start as early as possible, you can wow the admissions officers. And I think for all of us, that's what we wish for you. I want to thank the panel of students. As always, you're always the stars of the program. Other parents who are watching, if you have any questions, this would be the moment to ask Stephen or any of the panelists or myself. And if not, then Kathy, did you want to talk about what's next at Score at the Top?
All right, thank you so much. Let me just kind of turn everything off, so we're just back on screen there. And thank you so much, students. That was so fascinating. I am so impressed with the work that you've been doing, and I always learn a lot when I listen to these conversations. So thank you so much, Barb and Stephen, for such a wonderful and interesting evening. So let's just see. No, there are no questions in the chat. Certainly, if parents, students, if you have any questions moving forward after tonight's presentation, you can always reach out to us. Barb and I are pretty easy to reach. It's barb@scoreatthetop.com, and then my last name, Hart, H-A-R-T, at Score at the Top as well. Coming up, we have actually tomorrow evening, I'm hosting a student essay brainstorming session for, speaking of applications, for Common App personal statements and beyond. I'll just put the, we have it's free, it's with me, it's on Zoom. I just put the link below. So if you're a parent, students, if you're interested in joining, you can go ahead and sign up, and it'll be a small group session to help students get started with their college application essays, or keep going with them wherever you are. And then, so if no further questions for this evening, then I think, Barb, are we all set to say goodnight to our panel, to our crew?
Yes, and so on behalf of Stephen Turban, Lumiere Research, and JRA Consulting and Score at the Top, we want to thank you for joining us this evening. And I think you'll find a recording of this webinar on our website and our YouTube and maybe on Facebook. say something too? I want to thank my friend and my colleague, Kathy Hart, for her help in running the tech this evening. And I hope that all of you have a great evening.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you again. Have a good one. Good night.